A little while ago, former President Donald J. Trump sat down with Fox News' Maria Bartiromo, I'm pretty sure. I'm locking that one in. And did an interview with the man. Now, you know, as MAGA Republicans, MAGA communists, that's the joke we're doing. As MAGA communists, we're very committed to our support for Donald Trump. We love him. We love to hear him speak. Apparently, I saw a bit of this on Twitter. Apparently, he said some very funny stuff in this one. Just want to see, okay? I didn't actually listen to the man say it myself. I didn't want to spoil myself.
Communist China wants to become the #1 superpower, overtaking the United States. We know this. What can be done about it? Give us your sense of the policy and the response that should be happening toward Communist China.
So I know President Xi better than I know you, which is pretty good.
Really?
Okay, yeah, I really think so. So I know him very well. I've dealt with him many times. He came at Mar-a-Lago, as you know. He stayed.
Well, he's not a friend of the United States, I don't think.
No. He doesn't hate the United States, but he loves China. He wants to take everything away from the United States. He wants to not destroy the United States. He just wants everything. You got to understand, this is a man who's at the top of his game.
I just want to point out, by the way, right off the bat, that unironically, this is a more sensible foreign policy perspective than the mainstream GOP. The mainstream GOP position is just China evil, China bad, China destructive, whereas Trump will be like, President Xi, he's a nice guy, you know, we spent some time together, and he's not evil, he loves China, he loves China. Yeah, this is actually, no, you're right, Annie, this is closer to like a normal neoliberal position, which is the Chinese aren't fundamentally evil, rather, they're just an economic competitor, and they want things that we want, and therefore, in that respect, we are opponents. That's like, yeah, that's like a standard. It's the most normal thing you could say from Trump's perspective in this position.
He's dealing with an incompetent person in Joe Biden. He's never seen anything like it. And I was very tough on China. I tariffed them to a level 25 and 50% everything. We took in hundreds of billions of dollars. By the way, the happiest person in the world.
That's not true, but moving on.
Was President Xi. And I got along with him great, but he is all for China. He doesn't care anything about our country. And I'll tell you this, he doesn't believe
he's China first.
Meets with Joe Biden. He thinks it's a joke. He can't believe, he sees this guy. If you would see President Xi, you can't duplicate him in Hollywood. There's nobody in Hollywood could play the role. These people, these leaders, are at the top of their game. These are smart people.
He's like praising him. He's like, President Xi, no one could do President Xi the way President Xi has done President Xi. He's a smart guy. Very big brain, this President Xi. Joe Biden, not even close. President Xi laughs at Joe Biden.
Including Macron of France. I could go through the whole list of people, including Putin. Now, Putin's been wounded, probably. Let's see how it all turns out. You know, it's not over. I mean, one way or the other. But these people are sharp, tough, and generally vicious. They're vicious, and they're at the top.
Trump always praises authoritarian leaders of other countries. The thing that I think is special is that this is quintessentially Trump, right? He's talking about, like, authoritarian leaders in foreign countries, the way he's talking, the way it's like that Whitest Kids You Know business war skit. Does anyone remember of, like, the mortar being fired in through the window, and Trevor, God rest his soul, is like, you know, yeah, that's Johnson from over in CP&P. You know, we went to golf the other day, and he was real salty about this merger. Like that kind of thing. It's like that. Like, he's the way he talks about these world leaders is like, they're very impressive, top of the game. We're all batting up here at the top of the line. Sleepy Joe can't keep up. It's incredibly funny. There's no moralizing, is what I mean. Sniper business, that's what it's called, yeah. There's no moralizing. He's not like, America must prevail over. He's just saying, nah, well, you know, they're a business and we're a business, and I'm a good CEO and Joe's a bad CEO, and obviously this framing is insane, but it's also very him. Do you think he's actually backtracking to be a neocon? No, I just think he's a narcissist is the thing. Donald Trump is a fascist in the sense that if you want lots of applause, which he does, you say fascist things to a crowd. I sincerely believe that if you took Donald Trump and you put him in like a room to just chill in, and you could have anyone in there. You could have a Jew, you could have a black person, Hispanic person, you could have a trans woman in there, and you could talk to Trump and he would talk to you normally. I sincerely believe that. Not because he's not prejudiced. He is. But his prejudices and his bigotries are more a means to an end, and the end is fitting in with a crowd, right? He would be racist with his business buddies, not because of some like deeply driven moral weight on him, but because they've been racist and he wants to get along with them on that. Now, functionally, in terms of like outcomes, still a fascist. But when you leave him on his own for a bit and he's not like competing for the crowd, he's just, the difference between him and DeSantis is startling, right? DeSantis, as far as we know, was like smiling as he watched Gitmo people being waterboarded. Like he was like lording over them laughing. Trump would never do that. Why would Trump do that? He wouldn't do that. He would enter Gitmo, say, this place is for losers, you're all sweaty losers, and then he would go like find a restaurant. He would not even remotely, in no world would he care. All the bad stuff that Trump has done, it's always the same thing. It's always, he's just got a giant ego. It's not, DeSantis is a whole other thing. That's not like an ego thing with DeSantis. He's just a demon. This place is gross and horrible. Why am I here? This isn't a VIP place. I don't like this. I don't like the smell. I'm leaving. Why did you take me here? Yeah. I feel like my Trump impression is getting worse with time. The music's too loud. My feet hurt. I want to go home and play video games. I want to go play Mario Kart 64 on my original Nintendo 64. My feet hurt. I don't want to be here. I don't like what that guy's doing with the water. I don't like it. All right.
But their game, we have a man that has no clue what's happening. It's the most dangerous time in the history of our country.
So what should be the response?
Ukraine would have never happened if I was president. None of this.
He's saying that if he was president back in like 1912 or whatever he would have convinced Lenin to not district Ukraine separately. He'd be, Mr. Lenin, you're a smart guy. I don't think you should do this Ukraine thing. I think you should keep it all together. The Russian Empire should be kept intact.
This stuff would have happened. You wouldn't have inflation, for one thing. But going back to that, you...
Just not at all. Just zero. It's worth noting, by the way, that the Inflation Reduction Act that Joe Biden and the Dems put through worked. And right now we have less inflation issues than like any other Western country, basically. We like it got like fixed kind of, which is pretty impressive. I'm trying to see if I can find, I know I retweeted this, so I know I could find it if I just scrolled down through my Twitter feed. But now I'm growing less confident as I scroll down. I'm getting less confident that it's going to work. And then I'm going to find the tweet that I was looking for. I don't see it. Well,
Ukraine would have never happened. Taiwan, which will at some point happen under this group, would never have happened. You never heard these things being talked about.
He would have been there to prevent the Republic of China from escaping to Taiwan. Mao has just conquered the mainland. The Republic has looted the capital, and they're getting on their ships to flee to Taiwan. Trump is there in a gold-plated yacht, firing broadside cannons. Okay.
I knew about him because I'd be with President Xi. I'd talk, and he likes Taiwan a lot. And Putin liked Ukraine a lot. It was the apple of his eye. But he never made a move with me because he knew he couldn't do it. Remember this also with Putin. You know, they like to say, oh, Trump was soft. I was tougher on Russia than anybody in history with the sanctions and everything else.
You said you could end the war in Ukraine in 24 hours.
This is another weird thing with Trump, where he obviously likes Putin, and his entire administration was obviously compromised by the Kremlin. And for some reason, rather than doing what every other Republican does, like the Tucker Carlson thing is to go like, why even dislike Putin? Has Putin killed your children? Like, rather than that bullshit, you know, Trump will be like, ah, he's a bad guy, but I'll fight him, you know? It's very strange. He's a very special boy. Oh, yeah. Lowest inflation among the G7, and Amaravite found the tweet that I was looking for, with inflation rates around the world, where US is around 3%, and we're lower than, like, all these countries. Yeah, no, just to say that, like, so the Inflation Reduction Act that worked, I think no Republicans voted for it, to be clear.
Yes, I
How
do.
would you do that?
I know Zelensky very well. I felt he was very honorable because when they asked him about the perfect phone call that I made, he said it was indeed perfect. He said it was, he didn't even know what they were talking about. He could have grandstanded, oh, I felt threatened.
Well, that's not going to be enough for Putin to stop bombing.
He's like, I like this guy. When I did the thing that I got impeached for and threatened to withhold U.S. aid contingent upon him launching an investigation of my political opponent, he was cool about it, you know? He didn't go after me. I did the perfect phone call, and he thought it was perfect, too.
No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that I know Zelensky very well, and I know Putin very well, even better. And I had a good relationship, very good, with both of them. I would tell Zelensky, no more. You got to make a deal. I would tell Putin, if you don't make a deal, we're going to give him a lot. We're going to give him more than they ever got if we have to. I will have the deal done in one day. One day.
Now, China...
So, okay, this is what I thought he was going to say. People keep treating Trump like he's some kind of like, oh, Trump would have never supplied aid to Ukraine, because the whole far right in America hates Ukraine because they're fascists and Nazis. And Russia is also fascist Nazis. And Trump is like, I would get them to sign a deal, and if they didn't do it in 24 hours, I would give more weapons to Ukraine than Biden could have even imagined. I will commit the entire U.S. military budget. I will send them our aircraft carriers. And it's like, this is what the I mean. Because if Ron DeSantis was the front-running candidate, Ron DeSantis would have already processed what the GOP is talking about and then molded his personality to flawlessly fit with every expectation. And then he would have given like a, well, why do we even need to fear Putin answer? We should all be isolationists and let Europe burn, because why should we care about preserving liberal democracy abroad? But Trump can't do that because he likes Zelensky, because Zelensky didn't rat him out for the quid pro quo. He's to him. Trump being Trump gets in the way of fascism. This is why the GOP wanted Ron DeSantis as their front runner. Trump is too Trump to control. He's got too much of a personality to be a fascist properly, the way they need him to be.
Apparently is setting up this spy center in Cuba, 100 miles away from Florida. No. So what is the answer? What should the response be to communist China?
They will be closed down within, I don't want to say 24 hours, but very quickly. They will...
You mean the spy center in Cuba?
They can't have... Look, spy center is really bad. That's just the beginning. They're going to end up building military islands. You know, when opposite...
What the f*** are you going to do to a spy center in Cuba? What Guys, get ready for Bay of Pigs 2. Again, like the ultra-isolationist far right. And meanwhile, Donald Trump's like, I would give aircraft carriers to Ukraine. I would carpet bomb Cuba until it resembled a perfectly flat sheet of glass that I could observe from my high deck on Mar-a-Lago while reflecting on what a good president I've been. You know, like, I'm going to bomb Iran. Oh, sorry, he says Iran, because that's what Americans always say, Iran.
Japan, they said, yes, we're building a residential housing development. It turned out to be one of the world's largest military bases. Japan should have watched that. Turned out to Japan, they said, yes, we're building a residential housing development. It turned out to be one of the world's largest military bases. Japan should have...
Where?
4 hours, but very quickly. They will...
You mean the spy center in Cuba?
They can't have... Look, spy center is really bad. That's just the beginning. They're going to end up building military islands. You know, when opposite Japan, they said, yes, we're building a residential housing development. It turned out to be one of the world's largest military bases.
Opposite Japan in China? Where? What what oversees all of all of China's military bases that are overseas they're to the west of China. Where's the one that's across from Japan? I don't even know. I'm just going to assume this is sundowning. There are very, very few Chinese or Russian overseas military bases. Yeah, because they're expensive. Yeah, only we can afford that shit. You know how expensive military bases are? It's a tough deal. We go over there. Actually, in some countries, I think in Japan this is a big deal. They actually pay for our military base upkeep because in Japan, like, we built those bases while occupying them post World War II and making them a democracy, quote unquote. So, yeah, we got kind of a rough deal there. Well, no, we got a great deal. They got a rough deal.
Japan should have watched that. And I predicted, I said, there's no way. You know why? I looked at a 15,000-foot runway they were building.
What?
A Gulfstream doesn't need a 15,000-foot runway. Okay?
What?
I looked at this plan. I said, look at the runway. That's for military fighter jets. That's for military planes. That has nothing to do with private. They said they were building a residential development on this island. Turns out to be a military base. That's what they do. You know,
I just don't know what he's referring to. I have no clue what he's referring to.
One of the things in Afghanistan that's so sad, we should have never left Bagram. We should have kept it because Bagram is one of the largest military bases in the world. Of course, there's billions of dollars to build many years ago. And forget about Afghanistan. You don't want it for that. You want it because it's 1 hour away from where China is building their nuclear weapons.
What?
Bagram. And they left at the dark of night.
Well, China has been much more aggressive in these last 2 years. We know that. So
he's talking about the man-made islands in the South China Sea. China is doing a lot of bullshit in the South China Sea where they're trying to artificially extend the boundaries of their international waters line by building out islands to try to, like, bubble it out and move and cut off other trade routes. Yeah, is he saying right now we shouldn't have left Afghanistan? Dude, neocon pro-war Trump. He's going to bomb Cuba. He's going to bomb China, bomb Iran. He's going to go to Ukraine personally and bomb them. Yeah.
Surveillance balloons, a spy balloon that traveled across the country.
You know, they weren't aggressive with me.
Police stations. That's what I want to ask you. Were you aware of this kind of surveillance?
No. It was actually revealed in relation to the balloon shit that multiple Chinese spy balloons had passed over America while Trump was president, and they just decided to not make it public because it hadn't been known, and they didn't want to deal with the embarrassment of making it known, and they literally just unmolested passed over America.
Program underway of America from China in your administration? Were you aware?
They would have never.
Was there a surveillance balloon flying?
No, there wasn't.
Never?
Never. They would have never done it to me.
Well, this administration, the Biden administration said, oh, this happened, this started under Trump.
They did, and then they took it back. They said, oh, you know, they said balloons over Trump. They never did. You know, these balloons are pretty big.
They didn't take it back.
You see those balloons. It was amazing that they sent this large balloon right over the middle of our country, by the way, over nuclear areas and other areas.
What's more, not only did Trump's administration not deal with them or report on them publicly, they also didn't log the information within the administration itself. So, like, this info was not even found out until Biden took office. Like, this was, like, hidden because they were so embarrassed of the fact that China just allowed, or they just allowed China to run the balloons right over the country. Meanwhile, right, Chad Biden fired nuclear ICBMs at the balloon, thus protecting America forever.
And that you shoot that, if that happens, it would have never happened with me. It would have never happened with me. You should go back to another subject that you mentioned, Cuba.
There's also a reasonable chance that Trump was just never informed of the balloons. Like, it's entirely possible, what with him being a buffoon, that they might have found out and just not relayed the info to him because they just didn't want to deal with that. Just a non-zero chance. I don't know if that's true or not.
They're building military installations in Cuba, and the fake news media doesn't even talk about it. This is one of the most dangerous things, and nobody's even talking about it. China has to leave immediately, and they will. If I'm president, they will leave.
Let me get back to Taiwan, because we haven't touched on this. Should the U.S. help defend Taiwan if it means going to war with China?
Well, I don't want to say it, because if I'm in the position of president, I don't want to say what I'm thinking. You know.
Would you uphold our defensive treaty with Taiwan and help them if they were invaded by China? It's a secret. I don't want to spoil you. I can't. If I let people know, then it's not a secret anymore. Dude, it's so funny. Please, guys, I'm so glad we're watching this. Please remember this every time somebody tries to convince you that Trump is some kind of based isolationist anti-war candidate, okay? Literally, on every level, he's giving the normal neoliberal answer. Like, everything that he's doing here is the exact same kind of, like, global police interventionist shit that's been popular for U.S. presidents going back since World War II. Oh, China would have never had military bases built on its own artificial islands if it was up to me. Oh, how dare China build a big airstrip in the Gulf Stream 5 million miles away from the United States. The U.S. doesn't consent to that. I would tell Russia to get out of there, and if they don't, I'd just give nukes to Ukraine. I don't even care. We'll fight Cuba. We'll fight. Like, he's literally doing, like, containment strategy shit. Guys, who agrees? Am I off on this? He's literally doing, like, we will contain the spread of Chinese communism by any means necessary. We will stop them in the Gulf Stream. We will stop them in the South China Sea. We will stop them in Cuba. We will stop their ally, Russia, ostensible ally, in Ukraine. I can't tell you whether or not I would nuke China if they invaded Taiwan, because that's a secret. I don't want China to know that I would do that. Oh, my God. Apparently, this is what they're talking about with the Chinese military facility in Cuba. It makes sense that they would try to do this. However, I don't think they could really establish anything substantial here. If you're familiar with the the Cuban Missile Crisis, moving over the equipment necessary to build, like, nuclear ICBM facilities, or even, like, smaller missile launch stations that could hit America from a shorter distance, anything like that, like, I don't know how much they could reasonably do here. They just want to promote mutual good faith with Cuba, I imagine. That's just my guess. America is not going to let, like, a Chinese military ship carrying nukes into Cuba. We didn't do it with the Russians, and we're not going to let the Chinese do it either. Or with the Soviets, I should say.
No, if I answer that question.
Yeah, no, it's going to be like a listening post. It's going to be like comms, and it's going to be like a good faith thing between them. I know. I'm just saying there's nothing to worry about in Cuba, is what I'm saying. I'm saying there's nothing to worry about. Like, even if China was going to do some insane Cuban Missile Crisis shit, and they won't, it's not going to happen. None of it's going to happen.
It will put me in a very bad negotiating position. With that being said, Taiwan did take all of our chip business. You know, we used to make our own chips. Now they're made in Taiwan. 90% of the chips
advanced
are made in
semiconductor
Taiwan.
chips, 90% are
they
made in Taiwan. If China goes in there,
everything.
they'll be able to turn the world on and off. Isn't that right?
If China takes Taiwan, they will turn the world off, potentially. I mean, potentially. But remember this. Taiwan took, smart, brilliant, they took our business away. We should have stopped them. We should have taxed them. We should have tariffed them.
I want to ask you about these legal issues.
Okay, I will say this, though, that this is one element of, like, economic protectionism that I'll agree with, which is the fact that all of the world, or most of the world's semiconductor chips are being made in a tiny island constantly under threat by the world's second superpower is really dumb. We should absolutely have these plants in America. We should build those. I would be willing to, like, deal with a significant, like, cost comparative loss if it meant having these factories in America where it's relatively safe. That's very important. It's ridiculous. You can't just have it all. You can't just have it all in Taiwan, man. Aren't we building some right now? We're doing investment to some degree. I think the process is getting started, but, like, there's a reason they're only being made in Taiwan. Taiwan's economy, like, heavily focused into them, and they're very difficult to make, and it's expensive, and it takes specialty, and it takes blah blah blah. So, you know, it's a whole process.
You mentioned the indictment. Your team is asking for a postponement of a trial. Yeah. When do you want this postponed until?
Well, look, this is all election interference. There's no case here. It comes under the Presidential Records Act. I'm allowed to do this. I'm allowed to have all the records I want. In fact, the New York Times, believe it.
The law says I can have as many ice cream scoops as I want. They're coming after me, the fake news media. They don't like the fact that I took a lot of ice cream scoops, but the law says I can have as many as I want. I took as many ice cream scoops as I was allowed, and they indicted me.
Did an article. Please, 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 Mr. President, may we have the documents? It only applies to me. It doesn't apply to a vice president. It doesn't apply to anybody else. The Presidential Records Act, 1977-78. They did this.
I'm not gonna like waste time debunking this. We've gone over this a million times. He's objectively wrong. He's cooked. The criminal evidence against him is overwhelming and near irrefutable. I'm not gonna. Yeah.
And these people, you know, Jack Smith, whatever his name is, whatever his real name is, but Jack Smith is a thug. He's been overturned.
If Jack Smith, if that is his real name. Bro, we are so back. We are so back, bro.
In the Supreme Court of the United States for horrible things that he did, horrible, horrible things. And I have to ask this also. Biden has probably 30 or 40 times the number of documents in boxes that I had. You don't even hear anything about it. He doesn't want to give them. He has boxes in Chinatown, and he's getting a lot of money at Chinatown. He's getting a lot of money from China. He's got boxes in Chinatown. Why are they in Chinatown? He's got boxes in his garage under his Corvette all over the floor of a garage with a garage door that you can cut open with a paper scissor. I have more.
What? And the garage door, it was hiding behind, it was paper thin. In fact, I think it actually was paper. Sleepy Joe forgot to install a real garage door. He was using paper. He was hiding all these documents, billions and billions of documents of ice cream scoops, behind paper, in Chinatown, Chinese walking by. Just walking by, just right out there. Any one of them could have used a fortune cookie or chopsticks and cut through the paper and gotten at the billions of documents.
Mar-a-Lago, I have Secret Service protection, everything else. But even regardless of that, this is the Presidential Records Act. I'm allowed to do this. What they're doing is election interference. They want to try and damage my name so that I can't win the election. But so far, the people of our country see it. And my numbers have gone up as opposed to down because the people see it. It's a terrible thing. They've weaponized the Department of Justice. Do you know that they've
Do you have any indication the judge will grant this motion?
I don't know. I know it's a very highly respected judge, a very smart judge, and a very strong judge.
Oh, you appointed her.
I did, and I'm very proud.
Yeah, this judge is like super duper insanely pro-Trump. That much is true.
Proud to have appointed her, but she's very smart and very strong and loves our country. I mean, loves our country. We need judges that love our country, so they do the right thing. But I say this, the Presidential Record Act gives you all of the rights.
Oh, just because I was looking at it to clear it up. His Donald Trump's favorability rating has not really changed as a result of the criminal indictment against him. You can see the criminal indictment came out like around here, and then it like there was a sharp turn of like 3 points, and then it immediately wavered back out. Probably due to like individual polls, it didn't really affect much. Because again, if you're Republican, you love Trump, and if you're not, you don't like Trump. There's not much variance, really. I mean, you can see even all the way back to like 2017, the numbers haven't changed that much. It's been 5 years, and the height of his approval was 44.4, and right now it's 38.9. It's just Pretty consistent. Where his numbers have gone up is favorability for Republican candidacy versus DeSantis.
To do this, Biden wasn't president. He didn't have the rights. And he's under investigation, not with Jack Smith, but with a very nice person. But he's got boxes at the University of Pennsylvania, great school. They pay him, China pays him $1 million a year. Did you know that? $1 million a year. They pay $50 million or something to Penn.
Well, they also paid Anthony Blinken.
They pay all of his staff. They pay everybody. Look, he is so compromised as a president. He's a crooked guy.
Right, Tulsi.
And he's totally compromised.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
I don't care. That's who I am. That was great. Is it a shame to say I miss him? Oh, he's got so much energy. Love that. Oh, anyway, in terms of like actual meaningful political messaging, strongly encourage you guys to keep that in mind whenever you're like talking about super ultra isolationism and not helping Ukraine, because Donald Trump can't help himself. He can't toe the party line. What's your opinion of Chris Hedges? I think Hedges is a ridiculous last name, and I don't support it.